Today we're going to take these fairly standard looking kitchen implements and take them to the next level. Into these! Kitchen helper, baker helpers, pot helpers. You can move things around. They work great in the oven, on the range. Interested? Here we go. Here are the design constraints for this build. I want to be able to lift the handle up, and there's two kinds of handles. There's this handle, and there's this more challenging handle. I want to be able to move the pot around on the stove or in and out of the oven. And speaking of oven, I pulled the rack out of ours, and this is a fairly standard thickness for the rack. For around $5 to $6 in a big box store or dollar store, you probably can get a bamboo set of tools like I did. They come like this. Some are slotted. I like the bamboo, and that works. The other option is just getting a dowel. This is a 3/8 inch dowel, and then this is 1/4 inch dowel. Any of these tools will work. They're, believe it or not, they're pretty good quality for about $1 a piece. So these are two very likely candidates. Here's an example of the tool I'm going to replace. $9 they want for this thing. I'm sure it's very magical. There it is, going into the oven. And it's highly rated. Look at that, 311. There's the ratings for it. Very impressive. But I don't want to pay $9 for it. I could make 9 of these for that price. And it's kind of a unitasker. This is the biggest design constraint right here. So I'm going to calibrate my calipers right around 30 millimeters. So that's my target. This is a 14-inch dowel. Nothing really special about it. It's 3/4 inches long. I sanded it down a little bit. I kind of beveled the edges here and sanded this down. I took a round file and just filed out a notch here at the top so that I can push trays and things like that. But I actually sanded this down here to make it smooth. The dowels themselves are 2.5 inches long, and there's 2 of them. And I beveled the top edge there also. You have to compensate for the thickness of the dowel, and you want to center those dowels. So the center of the dowels is right around 37 millimeters, and the gap is 30 millimeters. And that allows me to take off that one glass top with any kind of knob on the top, or at least in the ones we have. To finish off the dowel set, all I do is take some standard wood glue, make sure I've got the non-beveled edge, push it in there. I'm going from the round top, pushing it back. You can also use a mallet. It should be a tight fit. In fact, when I was testing these out, it wasn't even glued. There, just driving that home, then just wipe off the excess. And that is going to stay in there nice and tight. Then we'll finish it off with a little bit of olive oil and mineral oil. It's important that you drill the holes straight for obvious reasons, to keep the pegs up straight like that. Pretty happy with that. I'll just let it dry and on to the next one. Even though I'm happy with this design and it will work for most people, it's a little complicated sometimes to drill that hole. So I decided to change this up and make it even simpler, because I'm all about trying to make all my designs so that anyone with a minimal tool set can make them. So I came up with this. I'm actually just carving those out with a saw. Originally I was going to take this out like that, and then I was going to have a little notch here. And then I was just thinking more and more about it, and I was like, why can't I keep the utility of the original and keep as much of the integrity and the strength of, in this case, the bamboo tools? So now that I have my markings, it's just a matter of cutting them up. The great thing about the bamboo is very strong. You could use a wooden spatula and a wooden spoon. It probably would work. But I'm just going with the real root strength, and you can see the line of the grain. That's going to really hold up to any kind of abuse that you can give it. To cut this material, you can use a pull saw. That's one of my favorites. I'll list it down below. A hacksaw or a coping saw. Coping saws are really good for this kind of thing too. You don't have to make this curve in the one piece. You could actually probably cut all the way through and completely fine. But again, I want to keep as much of the utility of the original tool, plus that gives me a little bit more strength for pulling in and out, make sure that it doesn't break. Filming cutting is always a challenge because it's a combination of trying to get the camera in the right place, but also not destroying anything. So we're just going to put this in the vise. And just so you know, this is coming in right around 30 millimeters. I will call this my stage vise. It's a little smaller than most. I think I'm going to select this pull saw for the first cut down. Bamboo cuts rather easily. You have to file it down because it does get a jagged edge sometimes. There we go. Hey, not bad. And a fairly clean cut. Now I'll come down and do this other part down below. Let's look at our progress here. Okay, so I've cut that out. It does look a little different. Now I'm going to use the coping saw and just come around and finish it off here to get that curve. You have the coping saw blade perpendicular to the U piece right here, the frame. So if you can only use one saw, a coping saw I think is your way to go. There's that piece off. The hard part's over. Now I just have to come in and do the opposite side. There we go. Lots of bamboo dust. So I got pretty close. I could have tried to do more with the saw, but I'm just going to file that up. And for the file portion, I'm just going to use a rounded file. And we'll see how we do here. Oh yeah. That really does quick work. Really smooths the edges out. Hit on both sides. Take all the little fragments off. Get that little edge off on the bottom. And then just go around and finish this off. Here is the end result. Alright, so it doesn't look like completely like the original spatula, but it's functional. It will work as a spatula, and it is super tough in both directions. That's not going to break when you're pulling the rack in and out. Unlike the 8-inch tool that you spend $9 for, that was highly rated, you have a 12-inch tool that will give you that little extra extension, so you're not going to get burned in the oven. It filed down really well. I'm surprised. I thought there would be a little more sharpness because it's bamboo. There's not going to be any slivers whatsoever coming out of that. Now, let's repeat it for this one. You wouldn't have to make all these tools. You could just make one of them. Whether it's the dowel tool, or the spatula, or this curved spoon. Now, this curved spoon is a little bit different. It fits in the vise differently. And just to show that I can use all the saws, I'm going to use the hacksaw on this one. Oh yeah, this works really good. There we go. Alright, the hacksaw did a great job on that. I'm wondering whether I need to cut through that last thing. I'm thinking maybe not. So this is the glass pot. It fits in there and pulls it off. Now, it's not completely on the center. To show you the difference. Well, this guy's about the same, actually. Alright, well, what I might do is actually take the file and file a circle down here a little bit to get this pot in here. But that takes that pot right off real easy. Pretty happy with that. So let's do a little bit of a file job here. I won't even cut it with the saw. To get in there on this angle right here, this curve, so I can maybe get that thing further down on the tool. You can see I filed it down just a little bit. Maybe I'll go a little bit more. Now let's do a fit check with the pot cover. Yep, that goes on there a little bit more. And the great thing about this spoon is you actually cradle the top of the pot fairly well. See, it kind of sits in there like that, as opposed to the spatula. So if you could only make one of these things, I would probably make this version or the Dowel version. That works completely well too. In fact, I like that so much, I think I'm going to actually notch out this a little bit on this one, just to get it a little closer to the center of the tool. You see how I'm rolling the file to get a nice curve in there. I think that's going to work a lot better. So I went a little deeper on that. You would think that that's weak, but this is bamboo and that's pretty darn strong. That little bit there. So now I'm going to clean this up, take all the draft lines off of there, smooth it down on all the edges. By the way, I didn't mention this before, but a little hacksaw like this, a smaller version, would work very well on this task here. And if you didn't have the coping saw, you could certainly file it down. I'm glad I did that little extra extension down in here on both sides, because that really lets the pot sit in the center. Now it's time to test out our creations and see how good they actually are. This is good. Alright, let's try this one out here. Yep, that's not going anywhere. Not going to burn your hands on any of these. Okay, so that works well there. If it works well there, it's going to work well pulling it around on the range top. Let's get the other guy in here. See, if you have two of these, you can really do some great action here. You pull this up and move that around at the same time. Swap out the lids. Does this one work? Yep. Pretty good. How about this one? Yep. I really like putting that little extra notch in there. It just makes a difference and gets the tool a little closer to the edge. You have to keep it at an angle. And my original dowel concept. By the way, on this one, you can also go quick and fast and just run the handle through there. And it works just as well. Let's see if the dowel works. Yep. So you got two options on this handle, which way you want to use the tool. Okay. Now, get you guys off to the side. How is this going to work on the oven rack? Yep. And you can go either over or under on all of these designs. That gives you a nice little notch to push and pull from. They're kind of crazy. They look funny, but they're very functional. Now that your project is finished, why not take the one last extra step and just seal the wood? You can do that with butcher block conditioner, mineral oil, or in many cases, I just like the color that comes out with olive oil because at least in our kitchen and many others, it's readily available. It doesn't take much at all. Just pour some on a folded paper towel. Wow, that's a little too much actually. Dab it up a little bit. Olive oil is also good for your skin, so don't worry about wearing gloves unless you really don't like the taste. See how that just kind of richens the wood up? And if you feel like you put too much on there, or it's a little too oily, just take a dry paper towel and knock the extra off. A couple coatings are sometimes required. The first one soaks in for a while, then you have to put another one on. Yeah, see how the grain comes out on that? I'm pretty happy with that. I like it. Let's see what we can do to these bamboo tools. Put on a coating, wait for a while, put another coating on. It'll just darken as it soaks in. And this also preserves your tools. They should last forever unless they burn up. And you know what? Bamboo and this, in the applications you're going to use it for, unless you got it on an open flame, it's going to be okay. A little time has passed, maybe 15-20 minutes, and you can see they're starting to darken up. Again, if it has a little bit too much oil on there and you're concerned about that, just wipe it down with a dry paper towel. Thumbs up and comments, always appreciated. Thanks for watching. This is a quick and easy build that anyone can do with some minimal tools that will keep your hands from getting burned in all sorts of situations. Stay tuned for more builds. I've got a lightsaber, Darth Vader. It's pretty close to being done. Coming soon, hopefully in the next week or so.